Welcome to the Vocal Lab podcast with your hosts, Shelby Rollins and Jason Catron, bringing you the best from the music industry. Get ready for first-class conversations packed with exclusive techniques and transformative insights, all designed to help you reach your top note. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's podcast. Shelby, as
Jason,
always, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I love how you welcome me to the show like I'm a guest.
I know. Why do I do that?
I don't know.
I just started doing it one day.
It's just like how we start talking to each other.
It's just a casual, friendly greeting.
Even though we've been here for hours.
For hours and hours.
But you have to suspend your disbelief when you're filming batched podcast
I feel like people
episodes.
don't say welcome anymore. Like if someone,
Welcome.
Like if you come to someone's house, like welcome.
Oh,
I didn't say
yes.
that to our guest when she
you don't
came
say like,
today.
welcome to our home.
Yeah, no.
Right.
It's a little proper.
You're like, hey.
Yeah.
Or in our neighbors, in our neighborhood, we've got a lot of kids in the neighborhood. And so it's really fun because everybody kind of has a bit of an open door policy. And so the kids just walk in and out of each other's houses, which I love. And we all kind of know these about 5, maybe 6 families. And so it's not unusual, especially in the summertime when the kids are out of school, for children to just appear in my house. I'm like, oh, hello. Didn't know you were here.
What if they're smelly? Do you kick them out?
They're always smelly, especially in the summertime.
No wonder you get sick kids. There's kids everywhere.
Yeah, we got our neighbors sick, actually, like a week ago because we were sick and then we gave it to them. Sharing is caring.
Unfortunate.
Yeah.
It is. And sharing and caring, I think, is something that our guest today is very versed in.
Look at your segue.
Right? Wasn't that good? We are so excited. I know you're super excited.
So
Shelby.
excited.
She's like, there's a reason this guest was last today. So,
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
if at any point said guest needs to get out of here, she should just be like, cut it, because Shelby may keep us here till midnight. No, you guys, we're so excited to have the one and only Rita Springer on today.
I am excited to be here.
We're so thankful that you were
welcome,
here.
Rita.
Yeah.
And that you said yes.
Of course.
I know.
Of course.
Rita and I have a very lovely mutual friend, Kate Dudley, who's an amazing soul. That is a friend of mine from LA.
Yep.
I forget how you all even met.
I met her when she was 19.
Okay.
And she came with her sister to just an event that I was doing.
Okay.
And it was just one of those things that doesn't happen all the time where you kind of connect with somebody in the audience. But I did connect with her and her sister, and then she would show up at another event, and then she would show up at another event. And then eventually we both lived in Houston, Texas at the same time. And she would come over, and then when she moved to Delaware, she would fly in for a weekend. And so I kind of say she's like the daughter I never had. You know, because she really is. She's like a kid to me. And I just love her to death. She's just precious.
Yeah, I've always known you both are so close. And, you know, she's a special soul.
Yeah,
she's
very much so.
Constantly Kate. She's most always going to be in black. She's
all the time.
Always going to be late. She's... Can I say that again?
Yes,
She's most always going to be late.
Wow, yeah. I don't think I've said that out loud.
Yeah, no, I've said it to her many times loud. In fact, the running joke amongst our little friend group in LA, one being our closest friend, Ren.
Yeah.
We'll plan a dinner, you know, he's like, hey, we're all going to go. Kate's going to be there. Well, you know, Kate.
This is when you tell somebody like that it starts 15 minutes earlier.
Well, no,
than
we
it
do that
actually
too.
does.
It doesn't matter.
The beautiful thing about Kate
Yeah.
that not most people have is that Kate talks about her circle and you never know the people in her circle. Like I don't, I've met Susan.
Yeah.
I've never met Ren.
Yeah.
You know, I've until today, I've never met you, but the way she talks about them, you feel like
You know them.
you know them.
Yeah.
And that's a kind of a rare gift.
It is
that
a
people
very
have.
rare gift.
Yeah.
A very
Yeah,
rare gift.
that's
And
true.
I think it speaks into the whole point that she is such an amazing person and friend that I don't care if she's late.
Yeah.
Anytime I can get
No.
with her, I love it.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly.
I also say
Forgivable.
one
She's
last little,
forgivable.
yeah, she is. One last little thing. A little fun fact about her too is like, you know, a lot of times living in LA, she lived in Venice right at the beach and we'd go meet her there. She always didn't care what time of year, what time of day. She always had on this long flowing black dress with a big black hat and a hot coffee. And I'm like, Kate, it is 98 degrees and we were at the beach.
She loves to be hot.
She does.
I mean, I'd rather be hot than cold. It's relatable for me.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I'm waiting for her to hit menopause.
Yeah.
And then she's going to want that air on all the
Yeah,
time. Because
so-
when she moved out here, she lived with us for maybe 4 to 6 months. And my son Justice loves it upstairs hot.
Okay.
And so she would spend a lot of time upstairs because I was like in full-blown hot flashes. And had the air on downstairs, a poor kid.
Oh, my goodness.
Funny.
Well, Rita, for those of you out there who may be new to Rita, she is, I'm going to use the word, an icon in your space.
In my space.
You are.
The mother. They call me the mother.
Yeah, of
Mother Rita.
some of your most beloved worship tunes and Christian music songs of all time. And so it really is an honor to have you here today and just hear more about your story.
It's an honor to be here.
Going to be like some fun stuff drop out of this, I'm sure. Shelby's chomping at the bit.
I mean, I don't even, honestly, I don't typically, this is going to sound negligent. I don't usually prepare for podcasts other than like familiarizing myself with the guest if I don't know them ahead of time. But we have the gift of gab, so it's not hard for us to ask questions and have conversations. But this is the first time I was like, I need to maximize my time. I'm going to think about but then I was like, to be honest, I don't even know where to start. So I'm just excited that you're here. But I have to say that, so many of your songs were like anchors in my life in different seasons, like Defender and the entire Fed by Ravens record is one that had me on my face. Like, so good. I texted a friend of mine this morning and I was like, guess who we have on the podcast today? And he was like, shut the front door. And no, I wasn't going to say anything like that. And I wanted to actually read this to you because I was like, this is something that she needs to hear.
I actually forgot to text Kate today. Did you text her today?
No.
I forgot to too. We'll send her a picture,
He said, I can't tell you how many times I've wept in worship in my quiet time to her singing, Oh, How He Loves Me. My face has literally had carpet prints on the side of it from being laid out in worship while she was ministering.
That's so sweet.
Wow. How does that make you feel when you hear things like that? Because this is not an uncommon, with songs like you've had. Yeah. This is not an uncommon response that you get.
Yeah, I'm really grateful for the era in which I came into this because I think the era that I came into it, especially with the Christian industry field, it's a business. So there's really no difference in the underbelly or the basement of it. Sure. It's a business. It runs like a business. Yeah. But the upstairs of it is that it's supposed to give hope to people. And the era that I started in, none of what is so-called worship now was what it looked like then. I started off with a church movement called the Vineyard, and it was kind of a come as you are hippie. A lot of drug addicts came to the Lord. A lot of people that were really struggling in life could just walk in a church and feel accepted right away.
Was that in Costa Mesa? Is that where it started?
Costa Mesa, yeah. It was a brilliant movement, and the leader of that movement, John Wimber, was one of the original Righteous Brothers. So he understood music.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he understood.
Know that either.
That's wild.
Yeah. And I think that's why the music had such a beautiful 20-year run, because he understood musicians.
I love that Hungry record.
Yeah. I mean, they put out some of the first kind of like between Integrity, Maranatha, and Vineyard, they were the ones that actually put what is worship music on the map. Right. Sure. Because before that was just hymns. And you have to almost have an appreciation for your faith to really understand hymns. Yeah. Because hymns are insane. Worship came as like this expressive, easy 4-chord kind of thing. And the funny thing is when I started writing, I was with a group of musicians or leaders. We didn't know what we were doing. Like we were kids. We had no idea what we were doing. But we would write these simple songs, and people would get healed on Sunday mornings. Wow. So we never wanted to write for a royalty check. Yeah. We wrote because we wanted to see if God would come again and somebody would get healed and get their hearing back, or tumor would the next week they'd come back with their PET scans, and their PET scans would be clear of tumors. Right. And so we were actually seeing a movement, spiritual movement of God that was actually wrecking our faith in the process. So that's how I started writing music. Yeah. And so
it wasn't about making money.
It wasn't about the industry. It wasn't monetizing. It wasn't any of that stuff.
Star, anything like that.
Nobody had a name. It was kind of like the nameless, faceless kind of generation of songwriters. And so there was something about that for me that just sunk into the marrow of my bones, and it never became about anything else. Yeah. And so when I hear all these things, to me, they're this what I call kind of like boomerang effects, where you put something out there, and then 5 years later, someone comes up and says, "When you wrote that song, and you released that song, my mother was dying of cancer, and it healed me so much in that time, and it gave me such space to grieve." And I'm like, oh my gosh, I wrote that song because my mother was dying of cancer during that time. And so you're almost seeing this actual really beautiful kind of supernatural thing happen. And I was like, this is fascinating. This songwriting is fascinating when you're actually songwriting to meet the heart, or to meet somebody in their point of contention, or their point of the need for a deliverance of some kind. And to me, I couldn't get away from that. Yeah. And that was the power behind it. Was like, oh, this isn't just about art, even though I think I understood creative expression after that, and really had to be challenged by God to be like, hey, don't suppress that art thing in you. Hey, don't suppress that other gift in you. Hey, don't suppress that, because the church wasn't talking about that, or the church wasn't saying that was okay to have. Yeah. I had to battle with all those things down the road. But the songwriting piece and the getting comments from people, I like the stories. I could write a whole book on the stories where you're just like, what?
Do it.
This, you should. This is crazy. It's like, to use a somewhat controversial word, like you were the vaccine for the conditions.
In a lot of ways.
That's crazy, right?
Yeah.
And you went through a journey to hear and feel God show and reveal that to you.
Yeah.
I've never thought about that, Rita. I've never, I came in Christian circles myself and did Christian music for a little bit, but I was always trying to balance the stardom from the, how do I battle that in my mind? And I want this, but that's not really what I never thought about that in this space, and how honest.
I do think though that it's like, sometimes I have to sit, because I'm there's the tension in the industry all the time. All the time. Yeah. And because of what we do, there's always going to be the tension, because the aspect for me is that I want more of the spiritual side of it, and the deepening of the faith side of it to be my focus, as opposed to what you get from the business. Yeah. And I think that's where the tension is too. It's because it's like, there are so many things, tours I was asked to go on, where I was like, this is it. This will be my big break. And I would hear the Lord say, nope. Wow. And I'd be like, no, this is it, man. This is going to be the big break. And I would just feel this, nope. And then I had this accountability team where they're like, we don't feel like that's right. And then 5 years down the road, that particular artist had train wrecked. Yeah. And everybody that was around them had train wrecked. Yeah. And I would be like, oh my gosh. I was 22 years old. If I had been on that tour, what would have happened to me? And I hear so many stories of people that are so fed up with the church and the culture of religion that I'm like, I still have all my hope, and part of it is, I think I've had to learn from the Lord how to step over here. Okay, stay safe. Now step over here, to where you have to learn to dodge these things that will come to try to steal your faith. Yes. And to steal your melody lines, because I don't think those melody lines that heal people are for sale. And I think they're hard fought after melody lines. Yeah. And the only way that you get them is if you keep yourself tucked in. The Bible talks about keeping yourself tucked under the wing of the Lord. And you're more prevalent to the heartbeat of God than you are to the heartbeat of the world. Yeah. And so I've tried to kind of stay in that place, and it's rare to find that. I think it's why I'm called Mama Bear, Mama, because I've learned the art of this in an era that I had to, because it was hard knocks. Yeah. And now I'm trying to tell the younger generation tuck yourself under the wing. Stop looking for the dollar signs. Don't do this for the wrong reasons. And it's a harder thing to do.
I've heard you say on your podcast, I'm paraphrasing, I know it's not probably word for word, but basically God asking you, do you want a paycheck or do you want to see the dead raised?
Yeah.
When you're like maybe going into a songwriting room or whatever. And there's maybe the agenda of like, we got to write a single for this artist or for, whatever reason. And it's as almost like a filter to stay pure to what you feel like your even like deepest calling is and anointing is, of not just, you're a beautiful melody writer. Like probably my favorite song on Fed by Ravens is Little Bird. And that's, which is Pretty Bird, which is where the Fed by Ravens title comes from. Yeah. And the melody of that is just, it dances around and it's just so unique and very, very special to me. And there's something about the actual melody, the sonic nature of it that is like, it just goes into your soul. You gotta listen to this song. But I think that when you have an anointing for something, when you've got that calling for it, to stay so pure to it is unto the betterment of the art that you're going to create anyway. Yeah. So it's not even about, like maybe this song could be, what is the 3 chords in the truth? Is that the saying in country music or whatever? Like could be maybe like single worthy, or it could be very like ear candy or something like that might get a lot of streams, but it may not be the best art that you can create.
Yeah, I think that's also where the tension is too, because you got to make a living at this.
Yeah, sure.
You do.
Yeah.
And so every year it's like, should I just stop this? Because I don't think I'm making a living at this. and you have to reevaluate. I think the older that you get, right, we're in an industry where they look at your age. They look at, I remember being, I must have been 32 and I came to Nashville to get a record deal. Like we had these meetings with these record labels. I was with an independent label at the time. And this massive Christian artist had a record label. And so we met with this person and I was maybe a 9'10", size 9'10", and probably the healthiest I'd ever been. And I walked in and they didn't sign me because I was too overweight for them.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
And I didn't find that out till like months later. I was like, why? Like I did such a great job. I didn't flub. I gave them everything I had. And they were just like, you're just not the look that they want. Mm-hmm. And so we're also in this industry which values you on outer appearance. Mm-hmm. And then you're in an industry where God values the heart, it's like, you're like, what? One of these things is not like the other, but
that happens in the Christian industry.
All the time.
I've seen some of the gnarliest stuff from Christians either actual Christians or Christian industry people, like in terms of shady, gross stuff.
It really is.
Yeah.
I mean, I someone once said to me, there's a reason why people aren't in church in the morning, aren't beating the doors down of the church to get in. It's because they've already been. And it's just like, oof, yikes.
Wow.
And so the bigger question is, what's that problem?
Yeah.
Because that certainly isn't Christ.
Right.
Mm-hmm. That's man making Christ look like something that Christ is not.
It's also not the church in Africa.
Yeah.
Asia.
Right.
Central South America. It's a very Western church.
Very much
by and large, right? I know that's a generalization.
But you're going to look at some of those places where the church is thriving. It's in villages where people walk 9 hours to get to a service.
And have nothing.
Nothing. Yeah. Because the need is so great. And I think that's the trying to keep it pure is a constant, there's a cost to what I do. There's a cost to what everybody does, right? There's a cost to everything that you're going to have to spend something of yourself in order to get to the goal. But man, the cost of being pure or the cost of doing it with great integrity, it's insane because you're not going to get noticed.
Right.
They're going to talk about you when you die, but your songs probably aren't going to be on the top of the charts and because you're not playing the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I'm like, I don't think I could play the game, Lord. So when the Lord says stuff like, do you want a royalty check or do you want to raise the dead? And my comment was,
Wow.
See, I didn't. I paraphrased.
my comeback was,
That's
can
crazy.
we do both? Like, I mean, the human response is, Lord,
It's
can
God's
we do
money
both?
too, right?
Yeah, it's like you say you own a cattle on 1,000 hills, like sell some cattle. Like, what's going on? And when the Lord's like, oh, you can do both. I just want to know where your heart is at.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh gosh, I don't want to pitch toward a royalty check because that would make the surface level things all great and then lose myself in the process. That would be really sad. And now I think I'm too old to lose myself in the process. Now I think my mental capacity is, okay, if God says I'm not done, the industry may have another option. I'm 58. If God says I'm not done, what are we doing next? And then all of a sudden you hit the creative mark where the Lord's like, let's paint. I'm like, I'm not a painter. Yeah, we are a painter now. Like, let's do this. Like even Fed by Ravens was just a whole different thing. And my publishing company was like, when that came out, the gal that runs our publishing company said, man, there's all these young writers and artists that have been signed by these new labels that want to write with you. And I'm like, oh, put them in a writing room. We'll write. And she's like, their managers don't want them to. And I'm like, why? Because you're too creative. And you'll go outside the lines and they need radio play.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, that's the best compliment you could give to somebody in their late 50s, you know? It's like that I'm more creative than a 21-year-old.
Wow.
And I'm willing to press the button to what's next, and not just, die out and be like, well, I had my run, that's it.
Right.
Yeah.
So
That's super challenging and encouraging to hear. I'm 42.
Yeah.
And it is easy to feel like the best years have already happened, And I get midlife crisis, totally get it. Because you, especially, with raising kids and marriage and stuff, it's like you get to this point where all of a sudden they get old enough to kind of wipe their own butts and that kind of stuff. And then you can sit down and breathe and then you look and take stock of what's around you and what you're doing. And you're like, oh, what am I doing? What have I been doing this whole time? And it's not that I'm not doing anything I don't enjoy. Did I say that right? Not doing anything I enjoy, but
I think so.
It's also easy to be like, what have I been putting? Are you okay? Time out.
I literally just got choked. That was the weirdest thing.
Is that water? You should drink
Yeah, I
some.
should drink some.
What have I not been doing? And is it too late to do that? And I think one of the reasons that you are like the mother in worship and in whether it's CCM worship or just generally in music and songwriting is because you continue to show up and create. And age is just a number, right? It doesn't matter. Like it's almost like you get more downloads, more creativity the more you do it, which I think is like the nature of creativity, that it begets creativity. But I love that. And it reminds me that there's still so much more to do, that it's never too late. And you should always get up and go do the thing that God's calling you to do. Yeah,
I interviewed this kid today that in 2010, he came in to a service that I was leading worship for, and I just noticed him from the platform, and I just could feel this thing. Sometimes they say that when your heart's beating out of your chest, it's God trying to tell you something. Mm-hmm. So I just felt my heart beating out of my chest, and I just felt like I heard God say to me, don't let that kid leave this building without telling him that I love him. Mm. And so I just kind of maneuvered over to it was all over. And I said, hey, I just feel like the Lord wanted to encourage you. He loves you, he sees you, but there's this musical worship calling on your life. And he's a metalhead kid there with his mom reluctantly, and ends up 6 months later becoming the worship leader of that church that I was in. And then he does that for 7 years and heads off to YWAM and lives this crazy life with his wife, pitching tents and going to farms all across the nation and just gathering young people, and never made it as a big worship leader. And he's like, that's what I was trying not to do. And then he had left his art. Like we used to draw with charcoal and stuff like that. He's got a real creative mind. And he just left that while he was doing all the worship thinking, well, God must not be on that. And then what he's doing now is just this phenomenal thing where he sees old stuff and he has this incredible mind to make something out of it. So people just give him their old instruments and all their like any instrument you can possibly imagine. And he just, he says, even when they deliver it, they're like, how do you want us to get this down? He says, throw it off the truck. And they'll just throw it off the truck and it just lands in pieces. And he's like, there it is. And he just sees like his mind's just like, and he's made these incredible pieces of art out of this old. And he's like, you're never too old to stop dreaming, because God may say, hey, remember that thing that you did when you were 12? Pick it up and run with it, at 47. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's the fascinating thing about art in general and creative expression in general of what we do, is that we can't, if we say, my time has ended, then you're putting a date and a stamp on that nobody else but you's doing. Right?
Yeah, God's definitely not.
Yeah, no.
Right? If we really do believe the truths of the Bible, like God is always using people.
And that should be your last day on earth.
Yes, right?
Otherwise, like, well, what's the point then of the rest of these years if you're not going to continue?
But there's no irony that I think oftentimes the people that feel the heaviest weight of that thought or reality in their space at any given time are the creatives. Because, again, the creativity is what I believe God flows through maybe most clearly at times. Like you're doubting something for the day and you wake up and you go outside and all of a sudden you've never seen that tree like that before. Like God he's speaking to me, And so the irony doesn't fall lightly or off of that whole thing, So I think to what you're saying, it's like you got to push that down. Yeah. There's no timestamp on what God can do or when he's going to do it.
And that's the business saying that anyway, that totally. There's like an age limit or
and
a size
culture,
limit or
it's
whatever.
Just culture.
Yeah.
That's when I look to Dolly and Martha, because they just keep on going, right? Yeah. They just don't stop.
That's insane. I mean, even doing, when we talked about Kate, what Kate gets to be a part of and what she gets to see, and I'm like, those are legends. That are still like creating some of the best music, because they're just really amazing artistry. And
and genuine people.
So.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. In fact, I was on a flight not long ago, and the client Kate works for, that I don't know if it's public knowledge or not, but like he's a huge music producer and songwriter. And he's been in multiple awards at every level. And he was sitting in front of me. So I text Kate and I was like, right in front of me as your boss. She's like, oh, go say hi to him. He's so lovely. So I did. I get up when the flight takes off, go to the restroom, come back out, and I just lean down and say hey to him. Like, hey, I'm a good friend of Kate's. He was just so kind and so nice, and just like, he's a tall stature with, again, like accolades galore. You don't know what you're going to get. Yeah. And it was just such a nice little moment to be able to meet him and say that. Yeah. But also speaks volumes of her and that, the people she works with.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. When I mentioned John Wimber, he told us a story once at a songwriting camp. He's passed away years now, but he said that he was either headed to London or coming home from London in first class, and he was sitting next to Elton John.
Oh, wow.
And, he was part of the Righteous Brothers. He loves music. So he just leaned over and he said, hey, I just want you to know that I love your music, and I've just really been ministered to by what you've put out, and just love it. And he said that Elton John looked at him and he said, you're John Wimber.
Oh, wow.
He said, you started revival in the churches in England.
What?
And Wimber's whole thing was,
Elton John.
You have no idea who's watching you.
Wow.
In your life's work.
Wow.
And what other people are gleaning and gaining from your life's work. And be very careful how you assume certain things about people and assume certain things about yourself.
Yeah. And levels of society or success.
That's powerful.
That is really wild.
I loved that story.
Yeah,
that's kind of held on.
That's crazy.
Such a cool story.
Speaking of like John Wimber and coming up through Vineyard and everything, was there ever a moment or a season where you sort of felt the shift happen from like you're writing songs for the church because you want to see people get healed to I'm writing songs vocationally.
Yeah.
And like, what was that shift like as you kind of described some of the tension?
I think for me, like when I started writing, I was 11. And so it kind of goes back to, I wrote to survive. So there's a lot of trauma in my youth with my father was dead by the time I was 9. My mother was dead by the time I was 21. Wow. Both of just horrible bouts of cancer. And there were 6 of us. So,
and you're a twin, right?
No. She, kind of an Irish. She's 14,
Irish
just
twin.
14 months older than me, but we look almost identical.
Look so alike. Yeah.
So there were 6 of us, and so we survived kind of being orphaned by the death of our parents. Always in the church, but wading through the religion of the church. My father was a Pentecostal freak of nature, swung from the chandeliers, like made some terrible choices in his life. And just
that has to be the social media reel.
I mean, growing up in a wild household, I mean, we took 350 acres because he was like, you sell everything, you give it to the poor. So we had nothing. Wow. And he was just a wild John the Baptist maniac. But you almost as a kid growing up under that, you're like, my dad's Moses. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you think he's like this, this hierarchy person. Sure. And he would disappear for days and he'd be like, I'm going out to meet with God. And we had all these horses that he would go down to the auction house and buy them for like $20 before they went to the meat factory. Wow. And so we had these kind of dilapidated old mares on the property that at 7 years old, I knew how to saddle. My brothers taught me how to shoot a gun. Yeah. And you would stick your gun in the saddle at 7 and climb on the saddle and go out. And I remember finding my dad once on one of his retreats with the Lord. And he was buck naked in a dried creek bed, quoting chapters of Isaiah. So when you're seeing that, you're already religious. Yeah. And when you're seeing that,
what
you're
state
just
was this?
This is California. And it's like hippie movement, like, and he was a radical for Jesus. Wow. Now, I was like, I don't think I could be that, but there's a part of that you're like, whoa, these are the roots that I'm coming from. Yeah. And that's, you gotta count that as passion. I remember thinking, I mean, he's got some passion. He is so into this and he's so bought into this that there must be something about it that has some mechanism of truth in it because he's bought into it lock, stock, and barrel to the point where he said no to medical attention. That's why he died so quickly because God was going to heal him. So there's a lot of religion in that. But growing up in that, it's like you grow up in that and there's this posture where I started songwriting because I was trying to survive it all. And so my songwriting after his death was just, my sister Roxanne, my twin, she took piano lessons and I was like, that girl is thin and she's pretty and she's not going to be talented. So I was like, I can one-up her on talent. So literally, I took piano lessons and said yes to piano lessons because I wanted to one-up this sister of mine. Wow. Yeah. And I did. Like, I was the one that chose, like, the theme from The Young and the Restless to play. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. The theme to the movie Ice Castles back in the 80s. And I wanted to one-up her in every way. But when I was home alone at 10, 11, 12, I would write letters to God on the piano. And just tell him how I felt, that how miserable I felt without a father, and how I didn't know if he'd even hear me. So really, my worship started there. So when I started with the Vineyard, the thing that was kind of like pinging that resemblance was the emotional connection of it, because I remember being 12, putting my hands, never thinking I could sing vocally. I had this throaty, low voice. Raspy. I was one of those raspy, talking kids that everybody thinks is cool nowadays. But when I was a kid, they always said, how come you talk like a boy in school? So I just didn't talk because I didn't want people to think I was a boy. Yeah. And so later on, it was like, you sound like Demi Moore. And I was like, I do? Then it became like the
was
cool.
The first kind of raspy female out there in the public
and kind
eye.
of in high school, that's when it was like the coolest thing. Yeah. But I just didn't really sing because I had this kind of raspy thing. And the even the beauty of that is I broke my nose at 3 or 4, by running a stroller down a hill, and it deviated my septum.
Oh gosh!
And so I think the raspy voice came from the deviated septum.
Yep.
And then when I went in for an ENT years later in my 20s, he said, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
He's like, I will ruin your voice. And he's like, it's why Streisand never had her nose done. You know, and he's like, if I go in there and refix all that stuff, I'm going to change the tone and the texture of your voice. And I'm like, oh my God, God gave me this voice.
Yeah.
Like he gave me that thing.
Yeah.
And that was a purposeful, you know, he used an accident in my youth as a purposeful tool in my life. Yeah. And so I, you know, you kind of end up walking with a limp sometimes. But I learned all these emotional connections of digging your way out of trauma through a melody line. And then trying to find that melody line vocally. And being 16, and I think it was at summer camp, I won a talent contest and sang one of Amy Grant's songs. And we called them musical directors. We didn't call them worship leaders back then. But our musical director was one of the camp counselors. And he said, how come you didn't ever tell me you could sing? I was 16. I was like, I want to sing Broadway. I don't want to sing church songs. You know, I was going to be an actress. I was going to go to Broadway. I was going to win a Tony. That's what I was going to do.
Wow.
Get out of poverty. That's what I was going to do. And that's when I started singing in church. Because outside of that, it was just 11 and 12 singing when nobody was home on the piano and making this emotional connection. So music always had this emotional kind of, if you sit down, God will come and he'll heal you.
Wow.
And he'll make you feel like you're not so alone. And I could feel that. It was
your own going to the river like your dad.
My own going to the river. It's like I didn't strip naked in a dried creek bed, but I sat at the piano and I told God how I felt. And I could feel this thing, this unexplainable thing. So I came, not even knowing as a kid what that was. And so I came back to find it over and over and over because it's the only thing that gave me peace. You know, it was the only thing that would stop the torment in the mind saying, you're not enough. You're unworthy. No one will ever love you. Because we all struggle with that crap. Of course. You know? And I think it's the beauty of God to give art. In fact, I've said this so many times, but it's such a powerful. I was having this conversation with God one day because I love talking to the Lord. And he said, you know, I wasn't on Prozac when I created the universe. And I was like, what? He was like, I didn't need help. Because I was so emotionally, you know. And I was like, well, what does that mean? He's like, it means that I've given you art as mercy. He's like, I didn't need the mercy. I created out of just my power to create, but I gave you as humans mercy that you find it as a merciful act because you can't get through your day. Wow. So you create a melody line or you paint a painting and how many historical artists and musicians through the ages have had these horrible, traumatic, you know, lives, and the way that they survived was through their art. Like that's the sweet, kind mercy of God. You know, that God Himself doesn't need that, but man,
Also, the juxtaposition of what you just said, like creating art, even making dinner at night, in the most artistic way, right? You can make these choices in life to lean into your creativity, or you get some type of crutch like a Prozac or a drug or an addiction, right? And it's so cool to see you just say both those back to back and how that mercy and grace and covering and
I think
it's wild. Well, that's so powerful. Yeah.
You had Flurry on your podcast recently, and she spoke to that, great. The littlest bit of like her theory behind creativity in the church and where it kind of is like womp womp. And I remember it was really profound what she shared about the creativity comes from connection. Yeah. And so if these you know tortured artists are connected to like some sort of drug, for instance, to survive and to cope, then that might be where some of that creativity flows. So they feel like they have to be on high as a kite to do something creative or whatever, when the reality, and what's so like profound about the simplest statement that you said of, I realized that if I just sat at the piano, I would feel close to God and just saying that I would, and that connection is what birthed such deep wells of creativity in you for your lifetime.
Yeah.
Like it's the mercy
and
of
I
God.
do think too, on the flip side of that, I think the Lord was inviting me in that conversation because I mean, in my faith journey, I really believe that God created the universe and he created man for unity, for community. And in the fall or the sin of man, that community was kind of broken, that unity was broken. And so I'm thinking, if God creates this absolutely stunning place, I mean, the first 5 days, it's like the first 5 days to me is just the most bizarre, beautiful thing of scripture because it's the most creative thing you've ever read. And he's just speaking stuff into existence. And then day 6, he's like, spits into some dirt and he makes a guy. You know what I'm saying? Doesn't take him much. Pulls a rib out, fashions a woman. But for 5 days, he talks about all of this stuff that he does. And I'm like, he put so much effort in the 5 days. What is the power of the 5 days have in art over humanity? Like, I think about seasons. And I think seasons were in place before man was made, correct? And I'm like, what do seasons tell us? Seasons tell us that winter can't stay.
Right.
It's going to break and it has to give way to spring. Spring can't stay. It'll give way to summer. Summer can't stay. It'll give way to fall. And it's this cycle. So it's like this beautiful prophetic song where it's like, my life just won't get any better. That's not the truth.
Right.
Because even the atmosphere is saying, it's going to be over. It's going to be, like, that's the prophetic song that the Lord is singing. And we're so inner focused that we can't get out of winter because we refuse to actually melt into spring.
Oh my goodness.
You know what I'm saying? And so there's that part of that when God is talking about, I didn't need Prozac to create. I think it's like, so you don't need that in order for me to give you everything you need. And so I'm like, you mean if I ask you to give me a lyric, oh my gosh, yeah, I got lyrics up the wazoo over here.
Right.
So some of my best writes are if I know I'm writing with an artist, that's putting out a new record, I'll sit with the Lord before and I'll be like, okay, is there a melody line? Is there a lyric? Is there something? And it's very often that I'll just get something right away and then I'll go into that, right? And I'll be like, well, this is what I heard. And they're like, oh my gosh, that's the exact line that I've been thinking about for 3 weeks. And da-da-da-da-da. It's like, it's kind of like that thing where it's like, oh, I didn't need Prozac. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
All I had to do is partner. And when you partner, everything's at your disposal. Everything's at your disposal. Because essentially, creation, he said you can have anything. You can have anything.
Right.
Just don't touch the tree. But you can have anything.
Right.
And we touched the tree and lost inside of everything. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And yet, so what's bringing you back into access to everything is just the obedience.
It's just the obedience.
Yeah.
Just the love affair with something bigger than yourself that takes you off the pedestal and puts him back on it, not in a religious manner, but in a relational one that you're like, you love me no matter what, don't you? And when you know somebody loves you no matter what, they're never going to come against you.
Yeah.
They're never going to treat you badly. They're never going to, you may not understand what they're asking you to obey or why they're asking you to do those things, but it's like, I mean, I had this encounter with the Lord maybe the first year in Nashville. I was sitting in a coffee shop and I was like, why am I doing this? What am I doing this for? One of those moments we all are like, I'm done with this. There's no producing of this. It's not getting me anywhere. I'm sick and tired of this. I'm done. And all of a sudden I've got my laptop out and bling, an email comes up. Because I said, where is my music going anywhere? Anyway, it's like, where's my music going anyway, Lord? What is it? It's not even going anywhere. And this email pops up and and automatically I just clicked into the email and this woman tells me this story and she says, you don't know me. This is my name. I live in this place. My husband was an astronaut. And she's like, he found your music before he did his last mission to the moon. And he took your music up to the moon. And she began to tell me the story that when that shuttle came back in the atmosphere, it blew to pieces. And everybody on board was killed. And there's this airport named after this guy. And she's like, several months ago, I got a knock on my door from the NASA. You know, they're still finding debris. And she said, they handed me a piece of the shuttle and your CD was melted to the side. And she just said, oh my gosh, I don't know if you ever question where your music goes, but I want you to know it's gone to the moon. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I just, you know, it's one of those moments where you're like, you can tell me that you don't need the Lord, you don't want God in your life, that the church has hurt you beyond repair. But I'm telling you that he's really real and that he loves you. Because for God to see that moment, you can't explain that. You can't, you know what I'm saying? And there's stories
and you can't
like
deny
that.
it.
You can't deny it. You just can't deny it. And so I think with music and melody lines, I'm always like, you're the God of the best melody line. You're the God of this. You're the God of this. Why don't you just, and even my voice, I talk about vocals. You know, I had surgery in 2023 and I went in, they intubated me. And when I came out, they said, there's a cyst on your vocal cords. There's a cyst on your, and people said, do you have nodes on your, and I'm like, no, I've never had anything. It's just the way I sound. Never had a problem with my voice. And there was one time back in the early 2000s where I started bleeding when I sang. I was just coughing up blood.
Oh, my word.
And for months, I had to actually translate songs, you know, a half step down. And I was like, I had this conversation where I'm like, bro, to the Lord. I'm like, look, if you don't want me to sing anymore, just say you don't want me to sing anymore. But we're not going to go through drama. And you know, it's, I'm like, I'll go work at Starbucks. Like, I don't need this big enough. It's not big enough in my life to actually have to go through something where I'm like this saga over whether I'm not going to lose my voice. And this whole story where I really quick, I went to this church at the beginning of the year in 1999, and I did this conference, and I was coughing up blood, and I was like, how am I going to do this? Like, I don't know what. And the ENT just said, your vocal cords are so shot, you need at least 6 months rest on this. I was like, I have to make a living. How can I take 6 months off?
Right.
And so I went to this church event, and in the middle of the in between the second set, the Lord was like, hey, I just want you to give the church a word. And I was like, a word? He goes, yeah, just speak from the platform and encourage this church. And I'm like, I'm sitting here asking you how I'm going to get through the set, and you want me to give the church a word. He's like, yeah. Don't worry about your voice. Just give the word. And I gave the word, finished the set, went home, never had a problem with my throat again. Just automatically gone. Wow. So in 2023, I get this cyst on my throat.
As a result of intubation?
No.
Or they discovered it.
They discovered it during the intubation.
Yeah.
So I go in and he's like, yeah, it's this blah, blah, blah cyst. And he's like, you're a singer, right? And I said, yeah. And he goes, if that grows, I'll ruin your voice just trying to get it. And I was like, whoa. And he says, you need to come back every 3 months and we watch this. Well, I never went back. And I wasn't really worried about it. It was just probably laziness, stupidness. And I was like, I don't know, I'm not going to go back. A year later, the Lord said, I need you to go back. So I went back, they couldn't find it.
I've heard you talk about this on your podcast. Yes.
And I went down to the car and I sat there and I just was like, I've been asking you to heal my back for years. And you're just going to miraculously take a tumor off my throat. And I just hear the Lord say, enemy can't have your throat. Enemy can't have your voice. Won't let him. He can't go near it.
Wow.
And I was just like, what? Wow. And I realized that I've never cared about this. I've not gone into massive training. Like, I don't see a trainer, you know. I had training when I was on staff at a church. I had a couple of vocal lessons when I was a kid. But I've never actually probably done everything that you need to do to vocally protect your voice. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, man, Lord, I probably haven't been a good steward of this. And he said, it's my muscle. Mm-hmm. And I won't let the enemy threaten you with that. Mm-hmm. And he says, because it was mine from the beginning. And I thought, wow, isn't that powerful? That when you don't own something and it's already surrendered, it's never going to be your fight.
Wow.
But when you have an issue with something and you can't surrender it, it's always going to be your fight. And so, you know, music, streaming, you know, that's my fight. That's the tension.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Right.
You know, when's God going to heal my back? You know, that's the tension.
Yeah.
But the vocal is, I've never even thought about. It's like, yeah, well, whatever. And that's been surrendered from the moment. And I just thought, well, I need to find surrender in all these other areas of my life,
right,
so that God can have access to it.
Yes.
And then he could back hell off of it when hell tries to come at it.
Oh my goodness.
Is that kind of what you mean? You said something a few minutes ago about like, we think that we're going to be stuck in winter. It's because we refuse to melt into spring. Is that kind of what you mean by that?
It's like constantly.
Just white-knuckling, holding on to stuff.
You hold on to stuff because you've got this, again, it's a church deficit, I'll call it, a religious deficit, where you're raised in this, if God really wanted something for you, you know, he would give it to you. But if it's not happening, it's because you don't have any faith, or you don't have this, you don't have that. So you struggle with that all the time, and you're like, well, God must not be blessing it. Well, what's your idea of blessing? Mm-hmm. You know, are you stuck on the financial side of blessing, or are you seeing people heal? It's the royalty check thing. Mm-hmm. It's that you're evaluating that all the time, and you have to clear the table, wipe the table off, and be like, I've had all this debris on the table because I think I'm not enough. And if I wipe the table off, I'm like, why am I doing this? Because you've seen people set free. You've seen more things than you can write in a book for what it's about. You know, you can't keep focusing on what you haven't gotten yet.
Yeah.
It's really, I mean, what you're really saying, I feel, is like in these moments, we really have to find ways to suppress the carnal and the momentary and put on those goggles of the supernatural, so that we can have access to what God already owns, instead of putting that blockage there.
Yeah.
Right?
I think it's a lot why people talk about gratitude being such an important part of our lives, because it gives us the better lens of going like, oh, he's always been faithful. He's always been good. He's got a perfect track record, right? And so to focus on what we don't have yet would make sense, that we would stay discouraged, that we would need the Prozac, that we would, you know, et cetera, versus to look back on the areas of where we didn't white knuckle it. And like, you didn't really care about your voice. God's always taken care of it because it was fully surrendered. Right. And so what are it makes me pause and go, what are the areas that were easy for me to surrender? Yeah. What were the areas that were easy for me to let go of and not hold on so tightly out of fear, and identify them, name them, speak them out loud, and go, wow, look at, if I really think about it over the course of my life, these are the ways God's been so faithful. Mm-hmm. And the areas that have been so hard to let go of are those seasons, you know, the forever winters and the places where you still feel like the fear take hold and grip because of that lack of surrender.
Oh, yeah. It is that. It's like, I remember being like, it's been like a 15-year winter once to Lord, whining and complaining. And the Lord said, 15 years of winter? It's like, where do you live? The Antarctic? You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh. And he's like, yeah, I didn't make winter to last that long. I live in Charlotte. You know, at the time, I lived in, you know, it's like, wake up. And you almost need that kind of cynicism, sarcasm sometimes from the Lord to be like, wake up and smell the coffee, kid. You know, you're in your own misery because you're in your own misery. Yeah. And those are like really big life lessons. I mean, when God doesn't move or doesn't heal or doesn't do those things that drive people to a place where they think God's not good, it's like God's goodness is based on whether or not God does what they want.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not that God's nature is good. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I mean, I remember because when I do everything that I do, I have a good hour on the piano if I got a good bench before searing nerve pain just starts rising up the leg and through the middle of the back to where, you know, anybody in the audience who has back pain will, some of them will come up to me and be like, you have back pain, don't you?
I threw my back out 5 days ago.
Yeah, it's just, you know, you're constantly moving, you're shifting in your seat just to try to relieve that. And I remember it being so bad, you know, that I was like, oh God, I don't think I could do this anymore. And I'm not going to be, you know, I'm not the kind of person that's like, let me be on painkillers. Why? Because I want it to be authentic. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I just hear this voice say to me, what's the BPM of your next song? And I'm like, BPM of my next song is 68. And he's like, then put the throbbing of your pain into the BPM of the next song. And so I was like, okay, can I do that? So in that moment on stage, I'm like, okay, I'm going into this next song. And so I incorporated the throbbing of the nerve pain into the song.
Wow.
And forgot I was in pain.
Wow.
It was so beautiful.
Music heals.
And yeah, and I just was like, what was that? And he's like, that's taking authority.
Wow.
He's like, if I'm not going to choose to heal you in the moment, how do you take authority over that moment? Because the goodness of God isn't found in the healing as much as it's found in the journey and the process. And I think that's the thing that people don't understand about Jesus is that, God's good all the time. Yes, he is all the time. A lot of us would beg to differ. You know what I'm saying? If we were honest, we'd beg to differ because our goodness is wrapped up in what hasn't happened yet. And instead of just being like, man, God's just good. Like, he's just good, period. There's nothing outside of that. He's just good. And whether or not I see a healing or whether or not I see a financial check come through or whether or not I get invited to this, doesn't limit the fact that he's good. So let's put the fact that he's good over here and know that that's the standard. And then let's try to work out in the flesh, in the carnality of the goodness of God, what I'm actually asking for. I'm not maybe asking for a supernatural thing. I'm just asking for a momentary a momentary. If it's a momentary thing you want to give me, I'll surrender to that.
Yeah.
Because I think we're like, if he doesn't heal me, then he's not a good God. It's like, well, I don't think that's his nature.
Yeah.
But
there's a line in your song in Pretty Bird, right? The "you wound to heal, that's how you bless." Is that kind of part of what you're sharing right there? Sort of part of that lyric and what that means.
Yeah, the Old
that's
Testament
like the lyric that stops
us.
me the most. I think in that song, and I'm like, I'm gonna sit with it. Like, what does this mean deeply? Like, you wound to heal, and I've it's hit me in multiple ways, probably for the last couple of years. But yeah,
I mean, the scripture talks about he wounds us to heal us, or he tears us to repair us.
Yeah.
And that sometimes that stuff is hard to swallow.
Right.
Sure.
But
it can make you question, how is he good if he hurts us?
Yeah.
Right?
And I don't even think that it's when I'm looking at at the Bible, I'm not looking at a story before the only time before sin is that little bit in Genesis. Everything after the fall is the carnality of man trying to figure out the goodness of God.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? So we're not talking about God striking you down purposely.
Yeah.
It's circumstances now have entered into the thing where circumstance, you're surrendering to God in your life, but circumstance still happens. And I think in a lot of ways, the tearing and the ripping is the circumstance that's ripping, or the cancer diagnosis, or, the mother that died, or, the rape or the miscarriage or whatever it is. Those are just life circumstances. And we blame God for all those things happening when the fall created all that.
Yes.
And so I often wonder too, it's like, choice to me is so holy. Like, the one thing that God does in scripture is he's like, just don't eat from the tree. But you have the choice whether or not to or not. And he didn't say you're not allowed to. In fact, it's against how I've made you to ever go to the tree. He's like, that's your choice.
Yeah.
So that to me says, if he gave us something, then it must be holy. And so if choice is holy, when we choose to do something that is outside of his goodness, all of a sudden we break community with holiness. And I always tell people that I've just got so many young artists in my back porch that are struggling with just all different kinds of things. And it's like, you can do that. The scripture doesn't say you can't. That's your choice to do that. But if you want the holier choice, is going to be a longer road home.
Yeah.
Because now sin's in the world and all of these things are here blocking the way. And I just think that the tearing to heal is the circumstantial evidence that the world's going to tear you apart, and God's going to allow it because it's circumstance, because man chose the fall. But the healingness of God is that it's like it's like God saying to Eve, now you're going to have pain in childbirth. What was it before that?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, what was it going to be, a breeze for her before that? Giving birth to a watermelon. It's like, I don't know how that would have ever been possible, but I've never heard a mother birth a child and not had her so consumed with the baby. And then it's like, well, if it was so bad, why'd you have 6 kids?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's a pain that you may remember, but you forget because the reward that you get is so beautiful. Yeah. I think that's the beauty of tearing and healing. Mm-hmm. It's like, it's going to be really painful. That's part of the process of choices and circumstance. But the end result is if you give it to God, you'll see this thing in your hands and be like, out of that, you gave me this.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right. So there's all these beautiful signs in Scripture that bring us back to the reality of what it is.
Yeah, it's an amazing analogy.
Yeah.
In fact, one of the most direct moments I really felt like I heard audibly God speak to me was in really the most painful time of my life, and it was in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
I was here in Nashville. I was living in LA at the time. I was at Brett's house, our mentor, had been staying there, and I just popped up out of bed in the middle of the night, and I heard audibly God say, "There's beauty in the breaking."
Wow.
And it was the first time in my life, growing up this, happy-go-lucky, very privileged little kid. It was the first time in my life where it made sense. Like the broken things are the most beautiful things.
Yeah.
And that through this journey of this pain, I had to not be victim to it, but trust and move through that pain. And I've never forgotten, even when things happen today, those words come back so quickly. It's always hard. It's always a struggle, whatever we're going through. But I just wanted to add that to what you're saying. It's that brokenness and the pain of it that makes it more beautiful on the other side.
Yeah. And to even realize in the Christian faith, Christ had to die a horrible, horrible death. So it's not like he doesn't even understand physical pain.
Yeah, right.
And I think that's the beauty of the cross. I did this thing just a few weeks ago. I was asked to just lead worship for this Catholic event. And I was like, Catholic? Like, you want me to lead worship for Catholics? And they just wanted 15 minutes of some songs. And when I got there, I was like, it was kind of this small group of really powerful, people. But the whole thing was that the Catholic Church was building a bridge between the charismatics. And I remember I was sitting next to this priest and I looked at the priest and I said, "Can I just ask you a question about your religion?" And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, "Why do I need you?"
I love that you just asked.
You know what I'm saying? I was like, "Why do I need you as a confessional booth when I have Jesus to go to?"
Yeah.
And he's just there are sometimes people that are just so, they live in the presence of God. He just kind of looked at me and he says, "Do you have accountability?" And I said, "What do you mean, like people around me that I can talk to?" He goes, "No, do you have accountability? Like someone that keeps you accountable every once a week? Someone that you could go to and tell all of your secrets to that would hold you strong?" And I'm like, "Nope." And he goes, "Most of humanity doesn't." He's like, the Catholic Church was only designed that the Father would be in the middle to hold people accountable, because when you have accountability, you don't fall as often. And when you have no accountability, it's like, this isn't about us being Jesus and you can't get to Jesus except you go through us. It's building an accountability so that it makes you very used to confession. And I'm like, whoa, like the Christian church can't get to confession.
Right.
There are leaders falling right and left.
Yes.
People are running out of the church in droves because they're sick of what they've seen in the church, because the cross is no longer seen as a confessional booth.
Yeah.
And it's like the whole power of the cross is confession. You know what I'm saying? So,
and I think many of us in that space grew up thinking that statement alone, like we don't need a priest. We can go straight to Jesus. How many times have we heard it growing up, right?
Yeah.
But
And that's true.
right? Yeah, you can
have that.
That is
but
the beauty
I loved
of it.
his example of...
Yes. I've never heard it that way.
Yeah.
That
It's
makes
And I was like, Father, can I have a confession? I was like, where's your booth?
Let's go right now.
You got a pop-up booth. It's a little tent and pops up.
It was actually the most beautiful couple days with, nuns and priests in the most pure way.
Yeah.
Where was that?
It was here.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was just a meeting here. That was just kind of this private meeting that I was like, why am I here? I feel like I'm a fly on the wall with the people that were there. And it was just this precious little, how do we build a bridge between charismatics and Christians? And Catholic people. And I was like, whoa. And it was a Catholic church that reached out for that.
Wow.
And I was finding things out about the Catholic Church. I was like, you guys want revival? We're like, we just want to see the presence of God come to the church. I was like, what?
Wow.
And all of these things. It was like, oh my gosh, the veil or the things, the partitioners that keep separating us in these religious, masks that we wear that say, oh, I don't believe that, or I don't believe that. It's like, I think we're all just reaching for the same thing.
Yeah.
We just haven't had a big dinner together in a while.
Yeah. Right. Wow.
That is so insightful and so good.
It is.
That is really
I don't know if
good.
this is about Vocal Lab, but
Hey, no,
I don't even care. I'm telling you, I could go for hour number 2.
Yeah, it's the beauty of the Vocal Lab. We just believe in empowering people, inspiring people,
good.
And letting love and life through that through the vibrations of music. We've had a few
inspiring.
other people in the worship space or Christian artists
Yeah.
be in here, and they're always really special moments. We the three
Doing
of
the
us.
show in general has
Christian.
been like one of the most life-giving things, especially work-wise.
Yeah.
That has been a part of my life for, in years, truthfully, because part of it's just like listening to people and letting them just share the wealth of wisdom that they have, and like, oh my gosh, I need to listen to all of our episodes again to like glean from what people are saying, because sometimes it's different when you listen back a second time. You're mentioning going and being part of that event for the Catholic Church. What other? Is that kind of the norm? Is traveling or doing things locally, like leading for events and stuff like that? Or is it more songwriting, getting in writing rooms, or is it both?
I like Mondays and Tuesdays, I life coach. So I mentor. So I'm online 5 hours each day, just giving people a boost.
Yeah.
And then on Wednesdays, I podcast. And Thursdays and Fridays, if I'm home and not flying out on Friday, I songwrite. So there's these percentages of my week that are split into all these things that make it really busy life. But I also don't make my living from royalty checks. So, it's like here. It's like I feel like sometimes I have 3 or 4 jobs. But I love to travel.
Same.
As long as I'm trusted in the places that I'm going, I love to travel as it relates to meeting people and connecting with people. I think that's why podcasting is so special, because it's just conversation and community and finding unity. And I'm fascinated by people's lives.
Yeah, same.
So just asking questions and finding out about people's lives, at the end of the day, you're like, I know something new about somebody. And it kind of makes it just makes you feel like, oh, this is what it's all about. This is what it's all about. Connection.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I almost said this a second ago before you asked that question. We'll batch podcasts, right? So all day today, this will get us through the next month. And it's pretty fascinating to me how, without us having a thought or throwing a little hook out there, we usually have a recurring theme throughout the days. Podcasts, all the different podcasts. And today has really been all about connection and communication.
Wow.
And I just wanted to point that out. Over the next month or so, you're going to hear that theme through the fiber of the podcast.
We're in such disunity. This
we
whole
are.
world is like...
We are.
So sad.
Yeah.
We are, and we're in this space where the powers that be feed off and fund their lives off divisiveness.
Yes.
Yeah.
And someone, I forget who I was talking to the other day. It wasn't us, but someone pointed out how they believe that about 60% of the population just thrives off of that divisive fodder that gets thrown out. That's just how they spend their days, right? And so trying to separate yourself outside of that to the other percentage of life to bring light and love and lift people up. Yeah. That really happens through this, through community, communication, and music, right?
Yeah.
Great food. It's all those things that are so basic and simple that have been around since the beginning of time. And we just still keep trying to complicate it.
I know. This is crazy.
It is so crazy. Yeah. It really is. It really is.
Are you don't make that like I'm taking a deep breath to land the plane. I don't know what you're going through your mind. I'm still going. Okay. Are you working on a new record or a new project right now?
With Fed by Ravens, I just really felt like if you're going to write a record about being in the wilderness, don't leave them in the wilderness.
Because of the seasons.
Yeah.
Go to spring.
So we'll release, probably by September, it's kind of a volume 2, but it's not like it's a little sequel, but we're not gonna have it like be Fed by Ravens 2 type of thing. It's just called Into the Clearing. So it's almost like, what does it look like to see the light at the end of the tunnel? What does it look like to feel the wind on your face again? And give that full picture of the wilderness is one place, but the clearing is another.
Yeah.
And you have to almost, you can't see the clearing when you're in the wilderness, but you can't go back to the wilderness when you're in the clearing. So it's kind of like just making that and finishing that up this year.
Oh, I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's beautiful songs. Yeah.
I believe it. I believe that they are. And I'm excited to hear them. I had another question. You always ask this question at the end of your podcast to your guests about what do you burn for?
Yeah.
And I've heard you ask that question to so many of your guests. And every time I'm like, I wonder what they're going to say. Because I find it to be one of the most challenging questions of like, I don't know, and you describe it like it's different from like your gifting, but it's more where you have felt more adversity or under attack. And it's like, what's the opposite of that? Is that like, how did you come to that question? Like, where did that come from?
It was a conversation. Another conversation I had with the Lord. Where,
I love that.
When you're trying to always unearth your trauma, I'm the kind of person that's like, we can go around the mountain twice, but we're not going around the mountain 3 times. You know what I'm saying? It's like, if I were like, if I'd got my counseling degree, I'd be like, my goal is to get you out of my office. So we're not going to spend 2 years trying to go through your father's problems. We're going to get you, that's like, come on, let's go. Let's go. Because sometimes we marinate in our sorrow. And I don't think we need to marinate in our sorrow. But I just had this conversation with the Lord where he just said, hey, you got to figure out what you're burning for. And I'm like, well, I'm burning for worship and songwriting and music. He's like, those are gifts. So those aren't burnings. Like when I knit you together in your mother's womb, I gave you something to fling out into the universe. What is that? And I was like, whoa, like, I don't know what that is. And he just explained it as if gift is the car in your garage, burning is the gasoline that you put in it. Because the gift is going to sit in there until you actually fuel it. Wow. And so you were given almost a combustible fuel within you, like a wick isn't going to burn the candle unless it's lit. And the fragrance won't be released unless it's lit. Or like if your spinal column was severed, you'd have no movement. So it's like what is the definition of your spinal column in the spirit? Like what is that thing that God's given you? Wow. And I was like, I don't know. Like I'm not that smart. Like I can't figure that out. And then he just said, what's your greatest attack? Like what's the epicenter of your attack? You get attacked from the right with rejection or fatherlessness or singleness or blah, 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 that create this spiral of unworth or whatever. But where does it send you? What drain does the water normally filter through? And I'm like, oh, I know that all the time it ends up flowing into the river of discouragement. I'm just wiped out by discouragement. And he's like, what's the opposite of that? And I was like, well, that would be encouragement. He goes, you were born to throw courage into the atmosphere.
Wow.
And he goes, and hell knows it. And hell doesn't care about the songs that you write. Hell doesn't care about how many records you put out. Hell cares about how you throw your courage. And I was like, oh God. And I could just see all the areas that I fight discouragement. If a fight's going to come, it's going to be discouragement. And so people that like burn for healing or they burn for connection, they have disastrous stories of disunity and disconnection and all kinds of things in their life. Or people that, yesterday I did a Zoom with a young musician, and I was asking him about, and he's like, peace. I think I burn for peace. He goes, because I've struggled my whole life with anger. I was like, right. And he was able just to see, because I think we all burn with either a positive or a negative. Because scripture says, if you're lukewarm, he'll spit you out of his mouth. So either burn for one thing or burn for the other. Hot or cold, don't be lukewarm. And so I think the negative, I can go online. We can all go online right now on Instagram, and we could be like, whoa, negative, 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 negative. You could see the rage. You could see the opinion. You could see, and I often wonder with those people, I'm like, that's all you spit out is this. I wonder if it's because you now operate in the negative part where you've given everything over to the darkness and you've stopped actually using what you were given as a wick that God, because there's so many stories in scripture about the light, being the city on a hill and the light, and the 10 virgins, 5 with their lamps lit and 5 that didn't know how to maintain their oil. And it's like, it's that whole thing about God uses light all the time. It's like, how are you burning? How are you combusting in the atmosphere? When I walk in a room, I want to throw courage. I don't want to throw discouragement, but I've got a choice to.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So when you find out what you're burning for, all of a sudden you're like, there's this aha moment of, oh God, that's why I'm attacked all the time in that area.
Yeah.
And it's kind of these massive aha moments. People that burn for healing, if they'll say healing, I think I burn for healing. It's always, have you been sick a lot? Whether it's mental illness in the family or fibromyalgia or weird like joint problems. And I'm like, right, because hell heard a rumor that you would burn for healing. So hell just started going after you with sickness.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Either of those in the tank. The
car will run.
The
car's going to run with the
on
fuel.
Dirty fuel or the good fuel. And then it can send your gifting into the world in a totally manipulated way God never intended for it to be.
I mean, how many secular artists have, what is it, the 27, that have committed suicide by 27?
Yeah.
What is this?
It's like, when they're the
27 Club.
The 27 Club.
That's a thing. I don't know anything.
Yeah. I mean, Cobain was 27. Wasn't Cobain 27?
I believe so.
Jimi Hendrix.
Janis Joplin.
There have been so many.
Yeah.
That it was like at the age of 27?
At the age of 27, they all killed themselves. Yeah.
Jim Morrison.
Yeah.
I've never heard of this.
Yeah.
Amy Winehouse.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But I think it's a demonic spiritual thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Because they are fighting this thing constantly. The enemy's like, I'm taking them out.
Yeah.
So that's prevalent in our industry too. It's just, I can walk in a room and be like, ooh, I can feel what people are operating in.
Yeah.
It's like, yikes. But then it's like, if that's what they're operating in, let me just begin to quietly pray over what the Lord's actually called them to become.
Yeah.
Because Jesus is that, maybe this will be my final thing I say, but, or this is a great place to end this. I love how Jesus called disciples. He didn't call them because of what they had in the moment. He called them because of what they would become later on. Don't you think that's the coolest?
That is the coolest.
That he didn't, what they came to the table with, it's like, he can't use that, but along the way, in fact, he said to Peter, I'm not going to call you Simon, I'm going to call you Petros, because it's on that rock that I'll build my church. When you become the rock that is uneasily moved, I can build something out of that. I can't with Simon. I can't do it with what you're coming to the table with now. And I just love that. Everybody comes to the table and the Lord looks at you and he's like, yowzer. But then he'll operate with you the way he knows you can become that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I love it because
He knows the gold in you.
He knows it. And he knows how to actually connect negativity to positivity. So if you come in the negative, he's like, well, I can work with it. But he has to like ignite it to the positive side of it. And we all have that opportunity. It's a choice.
Yeah, it's a choice.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful ending.
Yeah.
Wow.
Rita, thank you for being here.
You guys are welcome.
This has been
Thank
very
you.
special. I
You
know.
should come back again.
I know.
Anytime.
I know everyone out there has loved it, and obviously follow along with her podcast. And
It's called Worship is My Weapon.
yes, stream all her music, buy all the
Probably,
things, do the things.
I don't look at my
support away.
podcasting listening metrics, but it's probably my highest one.
That's the sweetest.
It's so
It's
good.
awesome.
Yeah, we'll have everything linked on our socials and everything. But seriously, thank you for
You're so
being
welcome.
here.
It's
Yeah,
a pleasure
such
to
a
be
pleasure.
here. Yes.
Thank you all for tuning in today. Until next week, this is the Vocal Lab Podcast. Thanks for tuning in to the Vocal Lab Podcast. Ready to join the top ranks of the music industry? Don't forget to follow and subscribe for more first-class conversations that make the extraordinary your new ordinary. Until next time, keep striving for your top note.